Have you ever tried praying the Rosary only to feel your eyes grow heavy, your mind drift away, and before you knew it, you had fallen asleep before finishing? If this has ever happened to you, don't just assume it was mere exhaustion. There's something much deeper at play. Padre Pio himself revealed a surprising meaning behind this phenomenon, something that could completely change the way you see your prayer. And believe me, his answer might deeply move you. But before we continue, I want you to do something for me. If you've ever experienced falling asleep while praying the Rosary and want to understand the true meaning behind it, write in the comments, "The Rosary is my strength." Amen. This simple gesture will help us bring this message to more people who, like you, seek to understand the mysteries of the spiritual life. Picture this. You're holding your rosary beads, determined to dedicate this moment to Our Lady, when without realizing it, your eyelids start to droop. Before you know it, you wake up minutes later, confused and maybe even a little guilty. But what if I told you that this moment of drowsiness could be much more than simple tiredness? What if it's actually a sign of something happening in the spiritual world? Today, we're going to dive into the teachings of Saint Padre Pio on this fascinating subject. He, who spent hours in deep prayer, faced intense spiritual battles, and received the stigmata of Christ, had a unique understanding of the power of the Rosary and the mysteries surrounding it. Get ready to discover surprising truths that can completely transform your view of praying the Rosary. You'll learn to identify whether your sleepiness is just physical fatigue, a spiritual attack, or even a form of divine protection. Yes, you heard that right. Sometimes falling asleep during prayer can be a sign of God's grace working in your life. Now, let's embark together on this journey of discovery, guided by the timeless wisdom of Saint Padre Pio. Prepare your heart, open your mind, and allow yourself to be touched by these revelations that can change your life forever. Before we delve into the mystery of falling asleep during prayer, let's take a moment to understand why the Rosary holds such a special place in our faith. This simple string of beads carries with it centuries of tradition and an immense spiritual power that has shaped the lives of countless believers. The Rosary, as we know it today, has its roots in the early Middle Ages. While the practice of using prayer beads dates back even further, it was Saint Dominic in the 13th century who, according to tradition, received the Rosary from the Blessed Virgin Mary herself. She presented it as a powerful weapon against heresy and sin, a tool to bring people closer to her Son, Jesus Christ. But what makes this prayer so powerful? Padre Pio, our guiding light in this journey, often referred to the Rosary as the weapon for these times. He saw in it not just a series of repetitive prayers, but a profound meditation on the life of Christ and the mysteries of our faith. Each bead, each prayer is like a step bringing us closer to God's heart. Imagine for a moment the power of this prayer. As you move your fingers from one bead to the next, you're not just reciting words. You're walking alongside Mary as she receives the news that she will bear the Son of God. You're witnessing the birth of Jesus in the humble stable of Bethlehem. You're standing at the foot of the cross, feeling the weight of our salvation. And finally, you're rejoicing in the glory of the resurrection and ascension. It's a journey through the entire gospel, condensed into a form we can carry in our pocket. Padre Pio understood this power intimately. He once said, "The Rosary is the weapon for these times." In his view, we are constantly engaged in a spiritual battle, and the Rosary is our sword and shield. Each Hail Mary is like a rose offered to Our Lady, but it's also a proclamation of our faith, a declaration of our trust in God's plan. But the power of the Rosary isn't just in its words or the mysteries we contemplate. It's in the very act of setting aside time to pray, to step out of our busy lives and enter into a conversation with God and His Mother. Padre Pio knew this well. He would spend hours upon hours praying the Rosary, often through the night. For him, it was a source of strength, comfort, and divine insight. The Rosary has also played a crucial role in world events. One of the most famous examples is the Battle of Lepanto in 1571. The Christian fleet was vastly outnumbered by the Ottoman forces, and defeat seemed certain. Pope Pius V called on all of Europe to pray the Rosary for victory. Against all odds, the Christian fleet was victorious, a triumph attributed to the powerful intercession of Our Lady through the Rosary. More recently, we have the events of Fatima in 1917. Our Lady appeared to 3 shepherd children, consistently asking them to pray the Rosary for world peace and the conversion of sinners. These apparitions occurred during World War I, highlighting the Rosary's role as a prayer for peace in tumultuous times. Padre Pio himself experienced the protective power of the Rosary. During World War II, when a group of pilots received orders to bomb his friary, they reported seeing a monk in the sky, warning them not to drop their bombs. The pilots, unable to release their payload, returned to base. Later, when shown a picture of Padre Pio, they identified him as the figure they had seen in the sky. Padre Pio, when asked about this incident, simply smiled and said, "The Madonna took care of it." So, as we continue our exploration of what it means to fall asleep while praying the Rosary, remember this: you're engaging with a prayer that has shaped history, turned the tides of battles, and brought countless souls closer to God. It's a prayer that Padre Pio cherished deeply and used as his primary weapon in spiritual warfare. The next time you hold your rosary beads, feel the weight of its history and power in your hands. Each bead is a step on a sacred journey, a journey that has the power to transform not just your life, but the entire world. And if you find yourself drifting off to sleep during this prayer, don't be too quick to judge yourself. As we're about to discover, there might be more happening in that moment than you realize. Now that we understand the profound importance of the Rosary, let's address the elephant in the room: falling asleep while praying. It's a common experience that many of us have faced, often accompanied by feelings of guilt or frustration. But Padre Pio, in his wisdom, offers us a different perspective on this phenomenon. According to Padre Pio, there are 3 main reasons why we might find ourselves drifting off during prayer. Each of these reasons carries its own spiritual significance, and understanding them can transform our prayer life. Let's explore each one in detail. The first and most straightforward reason is simple physical tiredness. We live in a busy world, constantly on the go, juggling work, family, and countless responsibilities. It's no wonder that when we finally sit down to pray, our bodies might take the opportunity to rest. Padre Pio understood this all too well. Despite his reputation for spending long hours in prayer, he was not immune to physical exhaustion. He once said, "Prayer is the best weapon we have. It is the key to God's heart. You must speak to Jesus not only with your lips, but with your heart." If you find yourself dozing off due to natural fatigue, don't be too hard on yourself. God knows our limits and our needs. Sometimes the most honest prayer we can offer is our presence, even if our bodies are crying out for rest. In these moments, our willingness to set aside time for prayer, despite our exhaustion, can be a beautiful offering to God. However, if you consistently find yourself falling asleep during prayer, it might be worth examining your daily routine. Are you getting enough rest? Are you trying to pray at times when you're naturally more tired? Adjusting your prayer schedule or finding ways to be more alert during prayer, like standing or walking while praying, can help combat this natural fatigue. The second reason Padre Pio identified for falling asleep during prayer is more sinister, spiritual attacks. This might sound alarming, but it's important to understand that as we grow in our faith and deepen our prayer life, we may face increased spiritual opposition. Padre Pio was no stranger to spiritual warfare. He often spoke of his battles with evil spirits and understood the Rosary as a powerful weapon in these encounters. He said, "The Rosary is the weapon for these times." In his view, each Hail Mary is like a blow against the forces of darkness. So why would falling asleep be a form of spiritual attack? Think about it this way. If the Rosary is such a powerful prayer, wouldn't the enemy do everything possible to prevent us from praying it effectively? Making us drowsy, distracted, or discouraged during prayer could be tactics to weaken our spiritual defenses. Padre Pio advised that when we experience sudden, unexplainable drowsiness during prayer, especially when we're not particularly tired, it might be a sign of spiritual opposition. In these moments, he encouraged persistence. Don't give up. Instead, try changing your prayer posture, praying out loud, or asking your guardian angel for protection and assistance. Remember, though, that not every instance of falling asleep during prayer is a spiritual attack. Discernment is key, and we'll discuss how to distinguish between these causes later in our talk. Now, here's where things get really interesting. Padre Pio proposed a third reason for falling asleep during prayer, one that might surprise you: divine protection. Yes, you heard that right. Sometimes God, in his infinite wisdom and love, might allow us to fall asleep during prayer as a form of protection. But protection from what, you might ask? Padre Pio believed that there are times when our souls are particularly vulnerable during deep prayer. In these moments, we might be susceptible to spiritual experiences or insights that we're not yet ready to handle. Out of love and concern for our spiritual well-being, God might allow us to drift into sleep as a way of shielding us. This concept might be hard to grasp at first, but think of it this way: just as a loving parent might carry a sleeping child past a scary scene to protect them, God might sometimes allow us to sleep through certain spiritual experiences for our own good. Padre Pio himself experienced this phenomenon. He once said, "Don't worry if you fall asleep sometimes while praying. It's a sign that you have completely abandoned yourself in God's arms, trusting Him entirely." This perspective offers a beautiful consolation to those who struggle with staying awake during prayer. What we perceive as a failure might actually be a sign of God's loving protection and care. So, the next time you find yourself drifting off during the Rosary, pause for a moment. Ask yourself, is this simple tiredness? Could it be a spiritual attack trying to distract me from prayer? Or might it be God's way of protecting me and inviting me to rest in His presence? Understanding these three potential causes can transform our approach to prayer. Instead of feeling guilty or frustrated, we can approach these moments with curiosity and openness to God's work in our lives. As we continue our exploration of this topic, we'll delve deeper into how to discern between these different causes and what practical steps we can take to enrich our prayer life, even when sleep threatens to overtake us. Remember, as Padre Pio often said, pray, hope, and don't worry. Even in our moments of drowsiness, God is at work, and the Rosary continues to be a powerful tool in our spiritual journey. Before we continue with this revelation, I want to invite you to become part of this spiritual family. If these messages of protection and wisdom are touching your heart, you can support this space by becoming a member of the channel. Also, if this message is helping your life, don't forget to leave your thank you in the comments below the video. Now, let's continue with these important revelations. Now that we've explored the three potential reasons for falling asleep during prayer, natural fatigue, spiritual attacks, and divine protection, let's dive deeper into how we can discern between these causes. Padre Pio, with his profound spiritual insight, offers us valuable guidance in this area. First and foremost, Padre Pio emphasized the importance of spiritual discernment in all aspects of our faith journey. He often said, in spiritual matters, we must be very careful in our judgments. This wisdom is particularly relevant when we're trying to understand our experiences during prayer. Let's break down each cause and explore the signs that might help us identify what's really happening when we find ourselves drifting off during the Rosary. Natural fatigue is often the most straightforward to identify. Here are some signs that your drowsiness might simply be due to physical tiredness. You're consistently falling asleep at the same time of day, regardless of when you're praying. You've had a particularly busy or stressful day. You're trying to pray when you'd normally be sleeping or resting. You feel physically tired or drained before you even begin to pray. The drowsiness comes on gradually rather than suddenly. Padre Pio understood the reality of physical limitations. He once comforted a fellow priest who fell asleep during prayer, saying, "Don't worry, my son. Even the apostles fell asleep in the Garden of Gethsemane." If you recognize these signs of natural fatigue, be gentle with yourself. Consider adjusting your prayer schedule or finding ways to be more alert during prayer. Identifying spiritual attacks requires a bit more discernment. Padre Pio, who frequently experienced spiritual warfare, provided some insights on recognizing these attacks. The drowsiness comes on suddenly and intensely, especially when you're not particularly tired. You feel an unexplainable heaviness or oppression during prayer. You experience a strong urge to give up on prayer altogether. Negative thoughts or feelings of unworthiness flood your mind as you try to pray. The drowsiness disappears as soon as you stop praying. Padre Pio often spoke about the reality of spiritual attacks. He said, "The devil is like a rabid dog tied to a chain. Beyond the length of the chain, he cannot seize anyone. And you keep at a distance. If you approach too near, you let yourself be caught." If you suspect you're experiencing a spiritual attack during prayer, Padre Pio advised to persist in prayer even if it's difficult. He believed that these moments of struggle could be particularly fruitful spiritually. This is perhaps the most subtle and requires the most discernment. Padre Pio suggested that divine protection through sleep might be occurring when you feel a deep sense of peace as you drift off during prayer. Upon waking, you feel refreshed and closer to God, despite not having finished your prayer. You find that insights or answers to problems come to you after these episodes of sleeping during prayer. The experience leaves you feeling loved and cared for by God, rather than guilty or frustrated. Padre Pio himself experienced this form of divine protection. He once said, "Sometimes, when I wake up from prayer, I feel as though I've received a great grace, even though I don't remember a thing." If you're experiencing something similar, it might be a sign that God is working in your life in a particularly gentle and loving way. Now, it's important to note that these categories aren't always clear-cut. Sometimes, we might experience a combination of factors. For example, we might be naturally tired, which makes us more susceptible to spiritual attacks. Or God might use our natural fatigue as a way to protect us spiritually. So, how can we navigate this complex spiritual landscape? Padre Pio offers us some practical advice. Pay attention to patterns. Keep a prayer journal. Note when you feel drowsy, what time of day it is, and how you feel before and after prayer. This can help you identify patterns over time. Examine your prayer environment. Are you praying in a comfortable chair that might be conducive to sleep? Or are you in a position that helps you stay alert? Check your physical state. Are you getting enough sleep in general? Are you eating well and exercising? Our physical health can significantly impact our prayer life. Be honest with God. Talk to Him about your experiences. Ask for guidance and discernment. Padre Pio often said, "Prayer is the best weapon we have. It is the key to God's heart." Seek spiritual guidance. If you're consistently struggling with this issue, consider talking to a spiritual director or a trusted priest. They can offer personalized guidance based on your specific situation. Trust in God's love. Remember, whether it's natural fatigue, a spiritual attack, or divine protection, God is with you in your prayer. As Padre Pio often said, pray, hope, and don't worry. Padre Pio's teachings remind us that our spiritual journey is not always straightforward. There will be times of clarity and times of confusion, but in all of these moments, God is present, working in ways we might not always understand. As we continue to explore this topic, remember that the goal of prayer is not perfection, but relationship. Whether you're wide awake or drifting off to sleep, your desire to connect with God is itself a beautiful prayer. In the next section, we'll look at some practical strategies Padre Pio recommended for deepening our prayer life, even when we face the challenge of drowsiness. Stay with us as we continue to uncover the wisdom of this great saint. Now that we've explored the reasons behind falling asleep during prayer and how to discern between them, let's focus on practical strategies to overcome drowsiness. Padre Pio, drawing from his vast experience in prayer, offers us valuable insights on how to maintain focus and alertness during our spiritual conversations with God. Padre Pio often advised changing one's physical position when feeling drowsy during prayer. He said, "The body must be comfortable, but not so comfortable that it invites sleep." Here are some suggestions. Stand up and walk while praying. Kneel instead of sitting. If kneeling becomes uncomfortable, alternate between kneeling and standing. Use a prayer desk or a firm chair instead of a soft, comfortable seat. Remember, the goal is to find a position that keeps you alert without causing undue discomfort. Padre Pio frequently prayed aloud, especially when battling drowsiness or spiritual attacks. He believed that vocalizing our prayers can help maintain focus and ward off distractions. Try reciting your rosary out loud, even if it's just a whisper. The act of speaking can engage more of your senses and help keep you awake. While Padre Pio himself didn't need visual aids due to his intense spiritual experiences, he recognized their value for many faithful. Consider using religious artwork or icons to focus on while praying, a prayer book to follow along with written reflections on the mysteries of the Rosary. These visual elements can help anchor your thoughts and prevent your mind from wandering. Padre Pio was known for his rigorous prayer schedule. While we may not be able to match his hours of prayer, we can learn from his discipline. Try to set a consistent time for prayer each day when you're typically most alert. This could be early in the morning, during a lunch break, or in the evening after dinner. Before beginning your prayer, take a few moments to prepare yourself. Padre Pio often spoke about the importance of recollection, gathering one's thoughts and focusing on God's presence. You might take a few deep breaths, light a candle, say a short preparatory prayer. This transition can help signal to your body and mind that it's time for focused prayer. If you find long prayer sessions challenging, consider breaking them into shorter segments throughout the day. Padre Pio said, "If you can't meditate on the 15 mysteries of the Rosary, say at least 5 or even 1. If you can't say one mystery, at least call on Mary constantly." Padre Pio was acutely aware of the spiritual realm, but he also understood the importance of engaging our physical senses in prayer. You might try holding and touching the rosary beads mindfully, using scented candles or incense if you're not sensitive to fragrances, listening to soft, spiritual music in the background. Sometimes, simple physical factors can contribute to drowsiness. Ensure you're well hydrated and that your prayer space is well ventilated. Padre Pio often prayed by an open window, allowing fresh air to help keep him alert. When all else fails and you still find yourself struggling with drowsiness, Padre Pio would encourage us to offer it up. This means accepting our limitations humbly and offering our struggle to God as a prayer in itself. He once said, "The Lord sometimes allows us to be unable to pray in order to make us humble and to increase our trust in Him." Padre Pio had a special relationship with his guardian angel and often encouraged others to seek angelic assistance. When you feel drowsy, try asking your guardian angel to help you stay alert and focused in prayer. Padre Pio frequently used holy water, especially when facing spiritual battles. Keep a small bottle of holy water near your prayer space and bless yourself with it before beginning your prayers. This sacramental can serve as a powerful reminder of your baptismal promises and help focus your mind on prayer. Incorporating scripture into your prayer time can help engage your mind and heart. Padre Pio often meditated on Bible passages during his prayers. Try reading a short scripture verse before each decade of the Rosary, allowing the Word of God to illuminate your meditation on the mysteries. Begin your prayer time by thanking God for specific blessings in your life. Padre Pio often emphasized the importance of gratitude in our spiritual lives. Starting with thankfulness can awaken your heart to God's presence and help combat drowsiness. Remember, the goal of these strategies isn't to achieve perfect, drowsiness-free prayer. Rather, it's to deepen our relationship with God and to persevere in prayer despite our human limitations. As Padre Pio often reminded us, in all the events of life, you must recognize the divine will, adore and bless it, especially in the things which are the hardest for you. Implementing these strategies may take time and patience. Don't be discouraged if you don't see immediate results. Like any relationship, our prayer life grows and deepens with consistent effort and God's grace. As we conclude this section, reflect on which of these strategies resonate with you. In the coming week, try implementing one or two of them in your prayer life. Remember, the most important thing is your sincere desire to connect with God. Even in our moments of weakness and drowsiness, God sees our hearts and cherishes our efforts to draw near to Him. As we've explored the challenges and mysteries surrounding prayer, particularly the Rosary, it's crucial to remember why we engage in this spiritual practice in the first place. The Rosary isn't just a series of repetitive prayers. It's a powerful tool for personal transformation and spiritual growth. Padre Pio, throughout his life, witnessed and experienced the profound impact of this devotion. Let's delve into some of the ways the Rosary can transform our lives, illustrated by historical events and personal testimonies that Padre Pio often shared with his spiritual children. Padre Pio often referred to the Rosary as a weapon against evil and distress. He said, "The Rosary is the weapon for these times." But beyond its defensive capabilities, the Rosary is also a profound source of inner peace. During World War II, when bombs were falling near his friary, Padre Pio remained calm, clutching his Rosary. He encouraged others to find solace in this prayer, saying, "Love the Madonna and pray the Rosary, for her Rosary is the weapon against the evils of the world today." Many who have adopted a daily Rosary practice report a significant increase in their sense of peace and well-being. One of Padre Pio's spiritual daughters once shared, "When I began praying the Rosary daily, as Padre Pio suggested, I noticed a change in my heart. The anxieties that once consumed me began to fade, replaced by a deep, abiding peace." Padre Pio believed in the Rosary's power to bring about profound spiritual conversions. He often told the story of a man who came to him for confession after years away from the church. When Padre Pio asked what brought him back, the man replied, "I promised my dying mother I would pray one Rosary a week. I kept that promise, and here I am." This story illustrates how even a small commitment to the Rosary can plant seeds of faith that grow over time. The repetitive nature of the prayer allows for deep reflection on the mysteries of Christ's life, often leading to profound insights and spiritual awakenings. One of the most famous stories associated with the power of the Rosary is the Battle of Lepanto in 1571. The Christian fleet, vastly outnumbered by the Ottoman forces, achieved a decisive victory after Pope Pius V called for all of Europe to pray the Rosary. This event led to the establishment of the Feast of Our Lady of the Rosary. Padre Pio often referenced this historical event to illustrate the Rosary's protective power. He encouraged people to use the Rosary as a shield against spiritual and physical dangers. During the bombing raids of World War II, many people in Padre Pio's town attributed their safety to their faithful recitation of the Rosary. Padre Pio, known for his gift of healing, often prescribed the Rosary as part of the healing process. He believed that while physical healing was important, spiritual healing was paramount, and the Rosary was a powerful tool for both. One memorable account involves a woman who came to Padre Pio with a serious illness. Along with advising her to seek medical treatment, he told her to pray the Rosary daily. Months later, she returned, not only physically healed, but also experiencing a profound spiritual renewal. Padre Pio simply smiled and said, "The Madonna is a good mother. She always listens to her children." Padre Pio was a strong advocate for praying the Rosary as a family. He believed that the family that prays together stays together, often attributing the breakdown of families to a lack of prayer life. He would share stories of families transformed by committing to pray the Rosary together daily. One such story involved a family on the brink of divorce. After committing to a daily family rosary for a month, as Padre Pio had advised, they found their relationships healing and their home filled with newfound peace and love. While the rosary might seem repetitive, Padre Pio saw it as a path to deeper spiritual understanding. He often said, "In the rosary, we not only say prayers, we think them." Many of Padre Pio's spiritual children reported receiving profound insights during their rosary prayers. One man shared how, while meditating on the sorrowful mysteries, he suddenly understood the depth of God's love in a way he never had before. This understanding transformed his relationship with God and his approach to life's challenges. Padre Pio had a deep devotion to the Blessed Virgin Mary and saw the Rosary as a direct link to her intercession. He often told people, "When you want to offer something to Our Lady, offer her the Rosary." Many who have followed Padre Pio's advice have reported feeling a closer connection to Mary and, through her, to Jesus. One woman shared how she felt Mary's presence more tangibly in her life after she began praying the Rosary daily, often feeling guided and comforted in times of difficulty. As we reflect on these transformative aspects of the Rosary, it's clear why Padre Pio placed such emphasis on this prayer. The Rosary isn't just a religious ritual. It's a dynamic, life-changing practice that has the power to bring peace, protection, healing, unity, and deeper spiritual understanding. Whether you're new to the Rosary or have been praying it for years, Padre Pio's insights invite us to approach this prayer with renewed enthusiasm and expectation. Each bead, each prayer is an opportunity for grace to enter our lives and work its transformative power. As we conclude this section, I encourage you to reflect on your own experience with the Rosary. Have you witnessed its transformative power in your life? If you haven't established a regular Rosary practice, perhaps Padre Pio's words and these stories will inspire you to give it a try. Remember, as Padre Pio often said, the Rosary is the prayer of those who triumph over everything and everyone. It was Our Lady who taught us this prayer, just as it was Jesus who taught us the Our Father. As we come to the end of our journey exploring Padre Pio's wisdom on the Rosary and the phenomenon of falling asleep during prayer, it's time to reflect on how we can apply these teachings in our daily lives. Padre Pio wasn't just a mystic with extraordinary experiences. He was a practical, spiritual guide who wanted to see real transformation in the lives of the faithful. Let's recap the main points we've covered. The Rosary is a powerful spiritual weapon and a tool for transformation. Falling asleep during prayer can have multiple causes: natural fatigue, spiritual attacks, or even divine protection. Discernment is key in understanding our prayer experiences. There are practical strategies we can employ to enhance our prayer life. The Rosary has the power to bring peace, conversion, protection, healing, family unity, and deeper spiritual understanding. Now, what do we do with this knowledge? Padre Pio would often say, "Pray, hope, and don't worry." But he also believed in taking concrete steps to deepen our faith. So, I want to invite you to take on a challenge, one that could potentially transform your spiritual life. The Padre Pio Rosary Challenge. For the next week, commit to praying the Rosary every day. It doesn't matter if you can only manage one decade or if you can pray all 4 mysteries. The important thing is consistency and intention. Here's how to approach this challenge. Set a specific time each day for your Rosary prayer. Maybe it's first thing in the morning, during your lunch break, or before bed. Choose a time that works best for you. Create a dedicated prayer space. It could be a corner of your room with a religious image or simply a quiet spot where you won't be disturbed. Keep a prayer journal. After each Rosary session, jot down any thoughts, feelings, or insights you experienced. Pay attention to any changes in your mood, your relationships, or your outlook on life. If you find yourself getting drowsy, don't be discouraged. Remember the lessons we've learned and try implementing some of the strategies we discussed. At the end of the week, reflect on your experience. How has this daily practice affected you? Have you noticed any changes in your life, no matter how small? Padre Pio believed that such a commitment could lead to profound changes. He once said, "Some people are so foolish that they think they can go through life without the help of the Blessed Mother. Love the Madonna and pray the Rosary, for her Rosary is the weapon against the evils of the world today." But this challenge isn't just about personal transformation. Padre Pio saw the Rosary as a powerful force for change in the world. He lived through 2 world wars and saw how prayer could impact global events. Today, our world faces different but equally challenging problems. By committing to this Rosary challenge, you're not just praying for yourself, but for the whole world. Remember, you're not alone in this journey. Thousands of others watching this video might be taking on this challenge with you. Imagine the power of all these rosaries being prayed around the world. As we conclude, I want to leave you with one final thought from Padre Pio. He said, "The Rosary is the weapon for these times." In a world that often seems chaotic and uncertain, the Rosary offers us an anchor, a connection to the divine that can bring peace, clarity, and purpose to our lives. Whether you're struggling with falling asleep during prayer, facing spiritual battles, or simply looking to deepen your faith, the Rosary is a gift that's available to all of us. It doesn't require special skills or knowledge, just an open heart and a willingness to spend time with Our Lady and her Son. So, will you accept the Padre Pio Rosary Challenge? Will you commit to spending this time in prayer each day for the next week? If you're ready to take on this challenge, write "I accept" in the comments below. Your commitment might inspire others to join in, creating a ripple effect of prayer and positive change. And remember, even if you struggle, even if you fall asleep, even if you miss a day, don't give up. As Padre Pio would say, pray, hope, and don't worry. Each prayer, each bead, each moment spent in this devotion is precious in God's eyes. Thank you for joining me on this exploration of Padre Pio's teachings. May your journey with the Rosary be filled with grace, insight, and transformation. And may the peace of Christ, which surpasses all understanding, guard your hearts and minds. God bless you, and remember, in the words of Padre Pio, the Rosary is the prayer of those who triumph over everything and everyone. Let's triumph together through the power of this beautiful prayer.